Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Folks, Donald Trump has once again made his racial priorities very clear. He's calling accountability persecution. He's literally importing white South Africans who built wealth on stolen black land, while at the same time turning away black and brown refugees who are fleeing war, famine, and tyranny. In January 2025, Trump signed Executive Order 14163, an order that shut down America's refugee program under the justification of national interests. The language of the order claimed the United States couldn't absorb more migrants, and it cites overburdened cities like New York and Denver and Springfield. It emphasized assimilation, public safety, national security, and preserving taxpayer resources. It even promised states and localities more input on who get to resettle within their borders. But buried inside that executive order was a loophole. The Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security could still make exceptions if they deem the case to be in the national interest. Now, guess who doesn't qualify? You got it, black and brown people. But guess who does qualify? You got it again, white South Africans. Because just months later, under that loophole, Trump is now allowing dozens of white Afrikaners, descendants of colonizers and apartheid enforcers and enslavers, he's allowing them to resettle in America. These refugees, or so-called refugees, claim they are being persecuted in South Africa. But let's be clear here. They're not really dealing with persecution. What they're dealing with is justice and the black backlash from centuries of white domination. Meanwhile, actual victims, black refugees from Haiti and Sudan and the Congo and beyond, are being denied safety. And they're dealing with real persecution. And these folks who are being denied, these black and brown people, they didn't steal land from anyone. They didn't colonize or enslave anyone, yet they're being excluded. This is not a fair and just refugee policy. This is white racial protectionism and good old-fashioned white privilege. And it's a mockery of our justice system. And for us African Americans, it is a direct insult. So let me talk about it. First, the policy is filled with hypocrisy. Trump's order suspended refugee admissions from Haiti, Sudan, Afghanistan, and several other predominantly black and brown countries. But when white South Africans claimed that they were victims of racial injustice in post-apartheid South Africa, Trump made an exception. This administration, under the same order, gave those so-called refugees refugee status. No refugee program for actual war victims. No refugee program for those who are literally running for their lives, having done no one any wrong. But a side door opens for the descendants of the colonizers. You see, this isn't about persecution. This is about protecting whiteness. And for African Americans, this is a mockery. It's a slap in the face. Trump isn't simply making exceptions. He's sending a message that whiteness deserves protection while black lives don't. He is mocking the descendants of enslaved Africans us, by importing the descendants of slave holders. And all the time, that's being funded by the very nation that enslaved our ancestors. Second, South Africa has a very deep history of black oppression. That apparently doesn't matter to Trump. So let's be clear on who these refugees really are. These are white South African Afrikaners who are also descendants of Dutch and British colonizers. In 1652, the Dutch East India Company established a supply post at the Cape of Good Hope. It wasn't a company intent on good faith business trade. No, it came for conquest and to conquer black Africans. Within decades, these same Dutch people began to seize land from the indigenous black African people. And when the black Africans resisted, the Dutch massacred and slaughtered them with their high-powered guns. In 1806, the British took control of the Cape Colony and expanded white settlement even further, and displacement of African communities intensified. By the 1800s, early 1900s, black South Africans were driven completely off their land. And to keep the stolen land, these European settlers passed laws restricting African land ownership. For example, the 1913 Natives Land Act reserved, now listen at this, 87% of land for whites only, leaving only 13% for the black majority. Then in 1948, apartheid became official. It became the official state policy. It was a brutal and murderous racist system that put the nail in the coffin for black South Africans, literally, politically, economically, socially, and figuratively. Under apartheid, now watch this, black South Africans couldn't vote. They had to carry a passbook. In other words, they had to be able to identify themselves. We African Americans know a thing or two about that because our enslaved ancestors had to do the very same thing. They were very violently policed and forcibly removed from white areas. The white Afrikaner-led government ran basically a full-blown racial dictatorship. And even after apartheid, white South Africans still controlled over 70% of South Africans' farmland and a majority of the nation's wealth. So that's what this is all about. They're trying to get, the black South Africans are trying to get their land back that was stolen from them. And now these white Afrikaners, they come here claiming they're the victims. And Trump agrees. And Trump also rejects real victims who are black refugees, again, running for their lives. White Afrikaners get protection. Black refugees from Haiti, Sudan, and Nigeria are blocked. Yes, these people are literally fleeing war, famine, political instability, unlike those white South Africans who are simply experiencing the black backlash from a majority black population who are trying to get their land back that was stolen from them. But Trump's administration slammed the door in the faces of these black refugees who come here who are really seriously victim. Now, here's the truth. Trump's refugee policy isn't about white safety or creating a safe environment for whites who are being victimized or persecuted. No, it's about race. In case you don't believe me, let's briefly look at Trump's anti-black record here at home. Let's run the receipts. So in his first term, Trump gutted federal oversight of police departments. as important as that is. He also banned federal diversity training. Now, this is his first administration. He allegedly called black majority cities rat-infested. He allegedly labeled peaceful black protesters thugs. Yet he praised Confederate symbols and defenders. Now, in his second term, and that's a short list for the first term, in his second term, that is, the last 3 to 4 months, he has abolished the DEI offices in all federal agencies. He has abolished civil rights offices in nearly all federal agencies. He signed an executive order banning critical race theory in school, although it's not taught in school, and just released an executive order that will militarize and unleash the police, very likely in our community. He's erasing black history. He's firing black achievers like 4-star General Charles Brown, like the former Library of Congress, Dr. Carla Hayden, and for no reason. And now he brings in white South Africans under the false banner of racial persecution. Folks, this is a very short list of the anti-blackness that we have dealt with Donald Trump. It's all one strategy to protect whiteness and to punish blackness. What's the message that he's sending to us, African Americans? It's really clear. It's an old saying. If you're black, get back. If you're white, you're all right. He's telling us, African Americans, that our history doesn't matter. Our suffering doesn't count. And our existence, our identity is disposable. So he's using refugee policies to reinforce a global white alliance while treating African Americans like a political inconvenience. What do you call this? Institutionalized white supremacy. And just imagine, some blacks voted for Trump or deceived other blacks to vote for Trump. And now these black Trump supporters are trying to defend their vote, or they're now trying to act pro-black. So where do we go from here? We must do what we've always had to do when faced with white supremacy. We got to fight. We got to speak up. We got to tell the truth. We got to expose this crap. We got to organize. We got to mobilize. And we got to get off the couch and go vote. And we won't let a man who has shown blatant racism, we won't let him silence the suffering of black people, whether they come from Haiti, Nigeria, or South Africa. We see the game and we reject it. Those white South Africans should not be allowed to come here as if they are the victims. Because the truth of the matter is, they are the perpetrators of white supremacy and the descendants of white colonizers and the apartheid regime that held black Africans back for centuries. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video, and stay woke.